Okay, good morning. Shavua Tov. Welcome to our Parsha class, the Parsha of Korach. So we're in the book of Numbers, the book of Bamidbar. The book of Bamidbar means, the name Bamidbar, the fourth book of the Torah, means in the desert. We call it the book of Numbers because there's a lot of counting. We count Jewish people more than once in this book. But Bamidbar, in the desert. And throughout this book of the Torah, we discuss various episodes, various incidents that happened with the Jewish people while they were in the desert. So yes, there are some mitzvahs in this book as well, but for the most part, it's telling us what happened to the Jewish people while they're in the desert. Most first half of the book is focusing on the second year um, before since they left Egypt, and then we skip to the end of the 40 years later in the book to the few things that happened towards the end of the 40 years. So last week we got we got the spanking, we got the patch in our face, where we got that punishment, this punishment of the spies, where because they came back with a negative report and they were not enthusiastic about going into Israel, so they got punished. And what was the punishment? That they will remain in the desert for 40 years. So now we're here for 40 years. We're in the desert. We're starting year number 2 of our sentence. And we continue with the story of Korach. That's what this week's Parsha, the Parsha of Korach, page 968. And the Korach, it's a difficult story. It's a story of politics. It's a story of infighting. It's a story of jealousy. And it's a story that teaches us of how to pursue peace, how to pursue shalom, how to stay above, how to not to get pulled in to these fights. And it gives us perspective of how to view another person. And as we'll see, how Moshe dealt with this, that although he was being attacked personally, he was able to find the good within every person, even those who were fighting with him. So what's the story of Korach? In short, the Chamaninid says this happened right after the story of the spies. And sometimes the haters, people who have problems with someone, they're looking for an opportunity. Oh, something happened already. There was a showdown. There was already an uprising between the spies and Moshe, and even though they were unsuccessful, but oh, there's some it's unsettled. There's some action going on. Oh, let's jump in here as well and come with our complaint. So what was his complaint? Korach was a cousin. He was a first cousin. Korach and Moshe, their fathers were brothers. Their fathers were brothers. Right? Korach's father's name was Yitzhar, and Moshe's father's name was Amram. They were brothers, so they were cousins, right? We're cousins. We know cousins, right? Think about your cousins. You stayed by grandmother's house for Passover, played together, you fought together, you were mischievous together, right? Cousins are cousins, right? We have great memories of our cousins. You can imagine that Moshe, Aaron, Miriam came together with Korach and his family and other cousins. They were playing house, right? They had a great time as kids. And then what happens? They grow up. They become adults. Maybe you lose touch with your cousins. Moshe becomes a shepherd outside of Egypt. For 40 years he was away. He becomes a general in Midian. He meets his wife Zipporah by Yisro, and eventually he comes back. He and his brother Aaron. Who are they? They are Moshe and Aaron. God is talking to them. They're speaking to Pharaoh. They're leading the Jewish people out of Egypt. And then Aaron gets appointed to be the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. And Korach is saying, hey, Moshe, we've been playing in the backyard together. We're in the same generation over here. We're cousins. What is this? Um, Nepotism? What is this? Because he's your brother, therefore he becomes a high priest? What's this all about? Seems to have some jealousy over here. So that's his complaint. And he riles up a bunch of people, 250 priests, 250 princesses, or people from of stature, people of recognition. They're coming and they are getting involved with Korach and some of the children of Reuven as well. He gets his group together and say, okay, we're going to find Moshe. What is this? Giving Aaron the high priest. Some say he wanted it for himself. Some say he was saying, we're all holy. What is this differentiation between certain people? Why does certain people have a leadership role and are seemingly more important than others? That was his complaint. So it's very difficult. You can imagine for Moshe, so this is not just a complaint about against God. Why did God take us out of Egypt? Why doesn't God feed us food? Why is he here? It's against Moshe himself. Moshe, it's all you. What are you choosing leadership positions for your siblings? What's going on over here, Moshe? It's very personal. It's very difficult for Moshe. You have lahavdil, when you have like in politics, people running for office, they know it's gonna be brutal, right? People going through office, they know everything's on the table. Everything is accepted, right? You're gonna get schmutz, you're gonna get things thrown at you from all sides. They're gonna find your whole history. They're gonna find things that you said 55 years ago and whatever, right? That's what it is. Running for public office, the higher the prestige of the office, the more they're going to really attack you. But people are ready for it. But what's the most difficult is when it comes from someone so close to you. When it's a close relative of yours who is attacking you publicly, that's the most difficult, right? If your own brother, your own nephew, your own cousin, is coming out publicly against you, that's a lot more difficult than saying some journalists found something and that's game, right? That's what happens when you're a public figure. But for here, when Moshe's own cousin is standing up against him, you can imagine how difficult it was for Moshe. So Moshe falls on his face. And Moshe says, okay, you really think this is all me? You really think I am the one who came up with this? It's all from Hashem. And in fact, let's prove it. And he comes up with this test, this challenge of the frying pans and the incense, the ketoros. He says, everyone should come with a pan and come tomorrow with the coals, with the fire, with the incense, and we will see which ones God accepts, which one is going to be accepted by God. And you'll see it's going to be Aaron, right? It's going to be the one that God chose. It's not me. I'm not the one who chose Aaron. It's like Hashem who chose Aaron. What do you think? And Moshe tries. Moshe tries to reach out to them and speak to them and try to reason with them. But there's no one home. No one's interested. They're not interested in engaging with him, not interested in having a dialogue, not interested in conversation, not interested in working things out. And so we have the response of God. The next morning, God appears at the Ohel, at the tent of meeting, at the tabernacle, And here he speaks for the first time about this issue. I want to read this inside. Verse 20, page 973. God speaks. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe ve'el Aaron. God speaks to Moshe and Aaron saying, Hibodlu mitoich ha'edah hazois. Separate yourself, disassociate yourself from this congregation. Va'achala oisam kiraga, and I will destroy them in an instant. Everyone move away. Something's happening over here. Something dramatic. I'm going to destroy this congregation, this group of people who are leading this rebellion against Moshe. Everyone move away because they're going to be destroyed right now. This is what God says. And you can imagine, what does Moshe think? Moshe should be happy. Oh, the police are here. The police have the riots. You know, they're coming to fight. They're going to stop this rebellion, this coup, whatever it was, right? Obviously, it wasn't a military coup, it was a coup with words, but they should be happy. Finally, we're going to see who's right. And what is Moshe's response? Verse 22. Vayiplu al pneihem vayoim. They fell on their faces and they said, Kael Elikei harucha yislacha basar. God, you are the one who knows everybody's thoughts. Ho'ish echad yachta va'al kol ha'eda tiktsoif. Just one man sins and you are angry with the whole congregation. So Moshe is like, wait, God, hold it. What's going on over here? One person sins and you're going to get angry with the whole congregation? Okay, what's going on over here? Which congregation was God going to destroy right now? He was going to kill the entire Jewish people? I think, of course not, right? God wasn't going to kill all the Jewish people because 200 Korach and 250 people were having this rebellion. It's obvious that when God says, I'm going to destroy the congregation, we mean the sinners, the ones who are involved in this uprising. So God says, separate yourself, disassociate yourself from these people because I'm going to destroy them. And what is Moshe's response? God, you know everyone's thoughts. One person sins and you're killing everyone. What is Moshe's response? What's he saying? And Rashi, the leading commentator over here, he gives an analogy, an interesting analogy. And we'll have to understand what exactly does this analogy really add to the simple meaning of the verse. The Rashi is actually translated in the Good Chumash, page 973, where it says classic questions. What did Moshe plead to God? Right? On page 973. See it? Right? What did Moshe plead to God? So Rashi says, he who knows man's thoughts, your attributes are not like those of men of flesh and blood. If part of a country becomes corrupt, a king of flesh and blood does not know who the sinner is, and therefore, when he is angry, he punishes them all. But as for you, all thoughts are revealed before you, and you know who the sinner is. If one man is the sinner, why should you be angry with the whole congregation? God said, you have spoken well, I know, and I will make known who sinned and who did not sin. So Rashi brings this analogy of this king who has this, part of his kingdom, part of his nation has become corrupt. So because he's a king of flesh and blood, he doesn't know who is the sinner, and therefore he kills all of them. But Moshe tells God, but you're not a king of flesh and blood. You do know everyone's thoughts. You do know who the sinner is, so why kill everyone? Okay. Now, what exactly is this adding? What exactly is this adding to the conversation? What is this adding to the simple explanation? You have to give an analogy about a king and a sinner and corruption. I mean, this is basically the same story, right? Is he adding any? Is he adding an explanation? And what's Moshe's response? So the Rebbe has a beautiful way of understanding, interpreting Rashi, and it gives us it's just a beautiful glimpse into what who Moshe really was. And even at the height of this rebellion against him personally, accusing him of nepotism, accusing him of basically deciding things on his own, which was totally, totally off. He still was looking to protect the people who were rebelling against him. So if you notice, every word in Rashi is precise. Rashi gives us this analogy of the king of flesh and blood, where there are people in his nation who are corrupt. And what does Rashi say? That because he is a king of flesh and blood, he does not know who the sinner is. Sinner, singular, one person. It doesn't say he does not know who the sinners are. Wait, there's a whole nation becoming corrupt. Who is the sinner? One sinner. Oh, so it must be that we all know when there is, when there's a coup, when there is big protest. Usually, there's one, two, a small group of people who are the instigators. They're behind it all, and they schlep other people in. So who's really at fault? I mean, to a degree, you can say, oh, anyone who's involved in this should be punished. But really, you want to see who is really at fault over here. Who is the instigator? Who's leading this up? Who is schlepping everyone in? Sometimes you can watch some videos, fascinating videos from in Israel, where there's these protests in like the West Bank. And a lot of the protests are generally they're violent. They throw rocks at whatever, burn tire, whatever they do, right? And the Israeli army, they try to arrest them. But who are you going to arrest, right? Sometimes you have hundreds of youth, of teens, of children, 15, 12-year-old, 18-year-old, all these young kids, right? I mean, you can't arrest the whole society, right? So who they want to arrest? They want to arrest the people who are leading them, right? The instigators. So what they do is they actually have called mistarim. They have the soldiers who are, how do you say it? They're dressed up as in Palestinian clothing, where kind of they go from behind, and they go in and they get involved in these protests, and they kind of feel it out. They see who is the ones who are the leading, who are the one people who are the instigators over here, and then they're able to arrest people that lead. So really, whenever there's a corruption, you got to see who is causing this, who is behind it. The one person, the two people, the few people. That's what Rashi says. That for a king of the flesh and blood, they don't always know who it is. There's thousands of people who are being corrupt, who are going rebellion against the king. We don't know who it is. Okay, so we got to kill everyone. We got to punish everyone. But God, you do know. You do know. So Moshe is saying, look, you have Korach, you have Oin ben Peles, you have Dasan and Abiram. There are a few people over here. You have the 250 princes of the Jewish people who are involved in this, but you think that they're all sinners? You know who the sinner is. Singular. Moshe says it's probably one person. Maybe he's referring to Korach himself. It's one person. You're going to kill the entire congregation because of one sinner. That's what he was saying. That's what his response was. God was saying, look, there's so many people sitting over here. We're going to kill them all. Separate yourself from them. We're going to kill them. Moshe says, please, God, you know who the sinner is. Everyone else, they're just being schlepped along. They're being pulled into it. They're not the sinner. Leave them alone. That's what Moshe was saying. Imagine that. At the height of this rebellion, personally fighting against Moshe himself. And what's he thinking? Who really deserves it? No. All these people, they don't really mean it. It's not really them talking. It's Korach talking through them. Don't punish them. Punish Korach. That's a true leader. That's a Moshe Rabbeinu. This is a Moshe Rabbeinu. Gives us a glimpse of what it means, how to handle adversity, how to handle someone who seems to be doing something negative, something wrong, but Who is it? Is it them doing it, or are they being overcome by something else? How to see the positive within another person, not to give up on anyone. And we see this again. We see this again later on in the story. We'll continue reading a few verses. How Moshe does not give up, even when everything seems to be over and it's final. They're not repenting. We gave them so many chances for dialogue, so many chances to come forth and have a conversation. Let's work things out. They're not interested. They're just trying to stir up, try and make trouble. Moshe still doesn't give up. Verse 23. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemer. God spoke to Moshe. Daber el ha'eda lemer. Speak to the congregation and tell them, Hey olu misaviv. Everyone should go away from Mishkan, Korach, Dasan, and Aviram. From Korach, Dasan, and Aviram's home. Dasan and Aviram were known troublemakers. These were two troublemakers who already, their name comes up already in Egypt, where they were fighting with in Egypt. They were the ones who went and tattletaled to Pharaoh that Moshe killed the Egyptian that was torturing the Jew. They were the ones who tested the Jewish people, God, with the manna, right? Dasan and Aviram. There's numerous times that there were some troublemakers, and who were them? Who were they? These two people. And now again, their Korach gets up. They're already in a moment. They joined him, and they're instigating this as well. So God says, "You want me to only punish the sinners? Okay, there's Korach, Dasan, and Aviram. These are the sinners. So separate yourself from their tent, from their space, from their home." But what happens after that? Verse 25. Vayakam Moshe vayelech el Dasan and Aviram. Moshe stands up and he goes to Dasan and Aviram. Vayelchu acharav ziknei Yisrael, and the elders of Israel followed Moshe. Vayidaber el ha'eda lemer, and he spoke to the congregation and he said, Suru na me'al alei hanashim eila that everyone should separate or leave from these these wicked people's tents. Don't touch anything that belongs to them. For you may die because of their sins. And we continue saying that, everyone left. And then what happened was, as we know, the ground opened up and swallowed them alive. They were punished. But if you notice, something very interesting over here. God tells Moshe, speak to the congregation. Don't speak to Dasan and Aviram. We're done with them. We're done. All right? Last chance, lost. Okay, we're done. Speak to the congregation. Tell them to leave Dasan and Aviram. Leave Korach's place. Move away from them. Right? And then, seemingly, we should skip to verse 26, that Moshe went and spoke to the congregation. What's verse 25 telling us? Right? If you're following along again. Verse 23 and 24, God speaks to Moshe to pass this message on to the congregation. Verse 26, Moshe speaks to the congregation. Verse 25, we have this verse that Moshe got up, went to Dasan and Aviram, and the elders of Israel followed. What did he do there? Did he speak to them? No, didn't speak to them. Why did he go to them? We don't know.
Maybe because that's what the congregation was.
So he could have said this. He went to the congregation. He spoke to the congregation. Leave these people. What's the Torah adding? A full verse. Moshe got up and he went to Dasan and Aviram, and the elders of Israel followed, and he spoke to the congregation. It's like almost like a dramatic incident. Moshe got up. Imagine that. And you have all the elders of Israel following him. And he went to Dasan and Aviram and he spoke to the congregation. Like, seemingly, every word in the Torah is precise. He could have just said, and he spoke to the congregation. You can even add the congregation who were near Dasan and Aviram. But it seems that there's something, a message in this verse that isn't clearly spelled out. So again we see who Moshe was. Not giving up on anyone, even Dasan and Aviram, known troublemakers. It's that kid in school that never listens to their parents, to their teachers. They're always disrupting the class. They're always getting involved in trouble. When there's something happening, they're always involved in it, and it's not good. There's a lot of negative energy around them. And the first thing that the teacher wants, if the principal ever mentions, you know what, I'm thinking about maybe expelling these kids, or of course, please, my class will be so much easier to teach. That's all they want. Just get rid of them. It's so much easier for me. Imagine that. These two troublemakers, time and again, always making trouble. And now God tells Moshe, listen, that's it. It's done. We're done with them. We're finished. To finally separate yourself from them, they are going to be killed. They're done. And what does Moshe say? No. One last try. Well, I'm not going to talk to them. I'm not going to talk to them, but I'm going to try one last time. And Rashi says, that's not translated here, but Rashi says, Kisavur sheyisu loipanim v'leosu. He thought, maybe, if Moshe, this is what's going through Moshe's mind. Maybe, if I get up, if I stand up, and I have the leaders of Israel behind me, and I walk towards them. See, previously Moshe called them to come to him. They didn't want to come. But maybe, if I walk to them and they see me walking with all the leaders behind me, maybe they'll be willing last chance to have a conversation. Maybe. And that's why he tried. Unfortunately, they weren't interested. Therefore they had to be punished. But Moshe says, I can't talk to them. But what could I do that maybe will ignite something within them to say, you know what? Maybe we'll change our ways. Maybe we'll talk. And that's what Moshe did last minute. So again, we see how Moshe does not give up on anyone. Not on Dasan and Aviram, not on the 250 people. Maybe they're not sinners. Maybe they're just drawn into it. Maybe there's a way out. Maybe they could change, right? We always try to find something within them. That's a Moshe. That's a true Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's something that we can learn. That's something that we can take to heart as well. How to view another person. Person sins. A person makes bad mistakes, and there are consequences. People have to own up. People have to take responsibility for their actions. But how do we view them? Do we view them that this is the sum total of who they are? This defines who they are, or ultimately, it's not who they are. There's a Korach, there's an instigator. There's someone that's pulling them in. It's not who they truly are. For those of you who joined our Tanya class, we recently studied chapter 23 of Tanya, which talks about this idea of there's just like a ruach shtus, like an illusional spirit that comes over us and causes us to sin. That's not who we are. Naturally, we all want to do good. Naturally, we have a beautiful, pure soul. And it's unnatural to go against God. And the fact that we do it every once in a while make these decisions that are more selfish and less and not selfless, right? We all make these mistakes, but it's not who we are. There's an instigator within us. There's a Korach schlepping us in, our own little Korach within us. We have a little animal soul. We have a little, something pulling us in to do something which is against what we truly want. It's not who we truly are. And that's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I see that. We have to, ultimately we got to take responsibility. Sometimes we get punished for what we do because we have to take responsibility for our actions. It says, Adam muad lo'elam. A person, a human, is always responsible for their actions, even in their sleep. If someone is sleeping and in their sleep they rolled over and hurt another person, they damaged someone's property. I was in my sleep. What should I do? Not responsible. I was sleeping. No, you are responsible because a human being is always responsible for their actions. So sometimes we get punished. We get punished because we are responsible for our actions, but it's not who I am. Don't define the person by their actions. See the beauty within every person. See the potential within every person. And that was Moshe Rabbeinu. And as we know, every generation there is a Moshe Rabbeinu of that generation. I think the Rebbe really exemplified this way, this view, this way of viewing another person. And just next week, Tuesday of next week, we're going to be commemorating 30 years of Gimel Tammuz, 30 years since the Rebbe's passing, physical passing, 1994. And that's something that we're thinking about, how the Rebbe viewed another person. And interestingly, I'll conclude with this. In 1988, this is on video. 1988, Bibi Netanyahu came by the Rebbe for a short visit. You know, the Rebbe would give out dollars every Sunday. I'd give $1 to each person to give to charity. And there were lines of people, we spoke about this many times, lines of people who would come to receive a dollar from the Rebbe to give to charity. And people saw this also as an opportunity to get a blessing from the Rebbe. Perhaps a little short conversation. So young Benjamin Netanyahu comes by. 1988 was the first time he actually became elected. He became elected Knesset member. Up to that point, he was in the UN, right, in New York. He had a relationship with the Rebbe previously in the 70s, early 80s. But in 88, he moved back to Israel and became a Knesset member. And it was only until 8 years later, 1996, that he became prime minister. So he goes by the Rebbe for dollars, and the Rebbe tells him that the Rebbe gives him a blessing for his new position. And I'm trying to remember the way the dialogue went. Something about, he says that he's just getting started. He's just getting started. Or the Rebbe told him, you're just getting started. And that's what it was. The Rebbe told him, you're just getting started in your work. And then Bibi Netanyahu tells the Rebbe, or thanks the Rebbe, thank you for the opportunity, if I have a relationship with you, I receive your blessing. And the Rebbe says, I'm also just getting started my work. Just getting started. Which is interesting because at that point, 1988, the Rebbe officially took his leadership position on Chabad movement 1950, 1951, after his father-in-law passed away. So we're talking about what, 38 years of leading the Chabad movement, and already, being extremely accomplished at that point. The Rebbe says, I'm also just starting my work. Perhaps, there's a lot of work that the Rebbe has been doing, building Chabad houses around the world, teaching Torah, whatever. There's so many things that the Rebbe accomplished. But perhaps the work that he was just getting started is the perspective. This perspective of how to view another person. He was just getting started because it's still happening today. We still have to work on ourselves and spread this message. How to view another person. Don't view them by their negative actions. Where their negative actions aren't them. It doesn't define them. See the beauty in each person. See that spark within them. See that little neshama that they have within them. That potential that we have. Believe in them. That is, is something that we still have to work on. And that's the way to see another person. I think we see this clearly in this week's Parsha as well. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for joining us for our Parsha class. And I'm actually going to be